Usually at this point in our program, I take a few minutes to tell you how I feel about a particular issue or the broader moment that we find ourselves in as Americans. Well, today I thought I'd do something a little different. I saw a full-page ad in the New York Times by a regular citizen by the name of Grant Grissom. As Grant says, he's an older man who's seen a lot in his time in America, but never something like what passes for normalcy under Trump. I was struck by one man's call to action with the context of U.S. history versus what Trump has done and now stands for. Here's now Grissom's open letter calling for this president to step down, and I quote, "Dear President Trump, I was born 80 years ago in a working-class neighborhood in Philadelphia. I was taught to respect all people, regardless of wealth, power, or status, and to be wary of the empty promises of politicians. Cops and firemen lived in my neighborhood. Some still do. Some likely voted for you, thinking that you respected them. Then came your order pardoning the thugs who attacked the police officers at the Capitol. Despite the fact that some of those officers died, you still pardoned them. Despite the fact that they had children and families that loved them, you called the thugs patriots and pardoned them. That filled me with disgust. It showed me that you don't give a damn about quote-unquote law and order. You only pretend to care about the cops and firefighters who put their safety at risk every single day to protect our communities. I do not carry water for the Democratic Party. I was a member of the Republican Party when it stood for fiscal responsibility and the rule of law. When Republican presidents stood strong with their allies and never groveled before a dictator. Prostrating yourself to Putin is despicable. Your actions desecrate a flag that generations of Americans in uniform bled and died for. Americans like John McCain. His heroism showed us who he was. When you disrespected him, you showed us who you are. You show contempt for poor and middle-class Americans, allowing Elon Musk to dismantle agencies they rely on while he prances around the Oval Office and you sit inert at your desk. You place unqualified lackeys in charge of those agencies. You have contempt for anyone more loyal to God and country than to you. Ask Mike Pence. Your tax cut in 2017 yielded hundreds of millions of dollars for your billionaires' friends and pennies for the middle-class, blue-collar families that make America great. You intend to do it again, to take benefits from those who have the least to sate the gluttony of the rich. You have refused to reject white supremacy, an especially odious Christian heresy that finds no support in Scripture or church doctrine, and that has caused incalculable suffering among Black and Native Americans. You have encouraged support for the white Christian nationalist movement, rejecting the separation of church and state, grounded in the First Amendment of the Constitution that you swore to protect, and honored by every president since Thomas Jefferson coined that phrase in 1802. Imagine an elder speaking to a gathering of children. There are two fierce tigers in my spirit, anger, hatred, and love and compassion. They are fighting to the death. A fearful child asks, which will win? The elder replies, the one that I feed. You have fed us a diet of your anger and hatred. It has divided us and made us sick. But in so doing, you have shown Americans of all colors, of all faiths, how dark our nation could become when our leaders act without wisdom, honor, or integrity. How precious is our democracy and the love of neighbor that Jesus commanded. Many patriotic Americans voted for you. You have betrayed them. For the sake of God and country, resign. Now, while I would tell the author of this open letter not to hold his breath, his treatise nonetheless sums up just how un-American these attacks our commander-in-chief has waged on our democracy are. So to the Democratic Party I ask, what about you? Will this serve as a call to action, or will you continue to whine about political PTSD and hope the courts will protect the rule of law and not you? If a private citizen will go into his own pocket to buy a full-page ad in the paper of record and say what needs to be said, the least the opposition party can do is join the fight.